Two guys either side of 50 with one dream to achieve middle-aged sporting glory. This is the Missing Links Golf Show. Here we are once again, Pilgrims, episode 24. This is an absolute cracker of an episode. Andy Walker, welcome to the Missing Links Golf Show.
Thank you, Mr. Hinks. Yes, really looking forward to listening again to what happened this morning. Actually,
it was an early start.
It was a very early start, however, very worthwhile.
Yes, early start. Obviously, balancing the time zone differences between Australia and the US. We were fortunate enough to have a very special guest join us on the Missing Links Golf Show today, an interview which we recorded earlier this morning with a really, really interesting guy, John Weir, who joined us, the mental golf type. Andy Walker, something that you've kind of been working away at in the background is, sort of figuring out your mental golf type.
Yes, yeah. It's something that I think we spoke about it sort of a week or two ago that I'd enrolled in the program, and it's something that I've got a lot out of. Anyway, because I had got a lot out of it, I reached out to John and said, hey, I really love your work and would love to have you on the show. And he said, yeah, all right, let's do it. So we organized a time and recorded it this morning. And it was an epic discussion. I think he's got a very unique approach to mental golf, and certainly he's a pretty big innovator within the space. But a lot of what he says is spot on the mark.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. So much knowledge, so generous to share it. Like, honestly, so much knowledge that I think from memory, we probably asked about 3 or 4 questions in the hour or so of conversation that we had with him. And they're, you're talking to someone that really knows their stuff when they can give you not long-winded waffly answers, but like just so much good content. So speaking of long-winded and waffly, how about
that's what this intro is.
How about we get to the point, Andy Walker, and go back in time to the early hours of this morning when we caught up with John Weir. Shall we cut to that right now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Andy Walker, I am super excited today that we have a special guest on the show. And since you arranged the interview, I'm going to throw to you to introduce our special guest for today.
Yeah, so today's guest is someone that I've listened to quite a bit now, whether it be on podcasts or webinars. He's certainly an innovator within the mental golf side of the game, creating a framework called the mental golf type. He's also the co-host of a podcast called The Golo Show. And it's my pleasure to introduce John Weir to the show. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here, guys. And The Golo Show, we haven't recorded in quite some time. We were one of those COVID podcasts that kind of popped up. We're a little bit bored. And then tour picked back up and things like that. So we kind of fell off. But they're still posted, and there's some really good episodes on there. So please go take a look.
Yeah. Look, Steve and I have both completed our mental golf fitting for our mental golf type, where we're a bit sort of poles apart. I'm sure we'll sort of get into it as the episode sort of goes along. But if you could maybe just give us a bit of background about sort of yourself, what led to creating the mental golf type, and what actually the mental golf type is.
Sure. Well, I've been at mental performance coaching now since 2000, so it's getting up to be over 20 plus years.
Wow.
And initially got started in mental performance because I saw my sister actually get hypnotized during a motivational speech. And
Fantastic.
Watching her, so we were in this huge group, maybe 400 people, and it wasn't like a comedy setting. It was more about how to tap into your, inner potential and what the power between your ears and all kinds of stuff we've never really tapped into. lo and behold, my sister was the one picked out of this huge group of people to go up. And I said, there's no way this is going to happen. Of course, she went right into hypnosis and he was given suggestions. And what really sold me, guys, was he told her, your body's stiff and rigid as a steel beam. Nothing can bend you, harm you, hurt you in any way. You're strong and solid as steel.
Mm.
And literally her body went rigid like a board. And the volunteers came, tilted her down, and laid her face down across two chairs. And the presenter went and stood on the small of my sister's back and was presenting his lecture on my sister like a human table.
Wow.
That's
And
insane.
yeah, at that point, my brotherly instinct almost kicked in. And then I kind of paused and I was like, oh my gosh, that was my sister up there doing this feat. Now, I'll be quite honest, if it was anybody other than my sister in that audience, I would have probably left still skeptic or saying that was a plant.
Sure.
But it was really undeniable to me, guys, right then and there at an early age. I was like, wow, there's something tremendous here. And so I pursued some things like my normal academics in psychology. I have a degree in developmental psych. I have my background, though, is primarily in hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming. And so we were doing a lot of my early work was working with behavior mod, but I bumped into a golfer one time at Starbucks and he goes, hey, have you ever worked with golfers before? And I worked with a number of athletes, never worked with a golfer, but I said, yeah, sure, of course, work with them all the time, not expecting I would work with him the next couple of days. I figure I'd have some time to get a little prepared and things. And he goes, well, I leave tomorrow for the Remax Long Drive Championship. He's like, would you help me and work with me over the phone? I said, sure. And he ended up finishing, I forget where he was at, his third or fourth, one of his best finishes. Was blown away. And from there, I was getting a lot more calls from golfers and ended up really going full time with training their subconscious through hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming. So we were doing things like creating triggers. So when they grip their club, they would feel confident, or supercharging their breathing processes so they would breathe and relax quicker, and really making use of the things that a lot of golfers hear all the time, right? We hear mental rehearsal and visualization, but very few people really know how to really put this into gear. So I was doing a lot of work with that, but mental golf type really started because if the brain worked like that fully, like we built their self-image up and we're creating great triggers, yet it needed lots of reinforcement, and yet we still saw people struggle. And what we came to realize was really the thing getting in the way of a lot of people was mental stress. And believe it or not, stress, regardless of your skill levels, what's holding back the game. Because when we have stress, our brains are releasing cortisol and adrenaline. This is spiking our heart rate, which eventually can alter our motor programs. But mainly the cortisol, believe it or not, is locking down the motor cortex. It's like a paralytic on our brain. So we started realizing that was the culprit, and we started looking at stress in general. What we quickly realized was what stresses you out, Steve, might be a lot different than me versus Andy and everybody's reactions. So we pegged the universal thing getting in the way. And a colleague of mine started bringing to light a lot on typology and what Carl Jung's background is 100 plus years in MBTI, and how he was using typology in his hypnosis sessions. And he was starting to see a link between stress behaviors, let's say smoking, overeating, drinking too much, gambling, whatever the person's challenge was. He said, John, I'm seeing a correlation between them using their underdeveloped function or their lowest developed function based on their personality. And we're given suggestions based on their best way of doing things in life. And they're having almost 100% success. It's like clicking right away for everybody. And so we started then diving into seeing if there was a correlation in sports. And I remember getting this call. I was in California at the time. And this pro, he called me. He was in a bit of desperation. I mean, he was a high-level college player, won 5 times in the SEC, was an All-American, missed tour in the old system by a couple shots. Now, he was struggling, went and talked with a psychologist, and the psychologist said, hey, I'm hearing a lot about this negative speculation. Why don't you try to speculate about positive things happening? And it sounded like really well-intended advice. He's actually wired similar to Andy, ISTJ. And what we came to realize is the next 3 years, or during this call, he played 36 events and made only 3 cuts.
Wow.
And was at the point of walking away. Now, this is a really, really good player. This was the effects of the stress. So we ran him through the personality assessment. He came out ISTJ. And what his least developed function was extroverted intuition, or speculating about the future. And typically, since it's an underdeveloped function, it typically went into more of like worst case scenario or projecting negative outcomes. And as a result, he would lose touch with these simple details or these simple steps that allowed him to perform really well. And we were just going through it, and it was based on life at that point. And he's like, oh my God, John. He's like, I've been trying to play golf like that for the last 3 years. And he goes, it's so different than what I was doing prior to that. He's like, I've been in stress. And it was like the light bulb was started going off. So we started testing out all these golfers from all around the world, everybody we could, running them through the assessment and then just interviewing them on their golf game. And what was scary was people like myself and ENFP were almost repeating the same things, guys, like word for word. It was scary. I mean, and this went on, and we put this into tests now with all kinds of players from all around the world. And the results are pretty crazy. It's like an underlying human template. And why it's so important we go through this fitting is again, what stresses you is different than me. And what my mental strengths are might be a lot different than yours. And so as we learn to key in on our strengths, our brains relax. If we go in and start using these underdeveloped functions, our brains get stressed. And no matter what level you are, you're going to start seeing the swing breakdowns or some changes. And from there, it kind of just inspired like this 14-year obsession where we went into investigating it, testing it. We used a company down from Australia, I believe, as a focus band. We used them a lot in the testing and seeing how people's minds were relaxing, different biofeedback tools. And yeah, it's been 14 years. And now we're starting to see the dynamic between the three levels of our minds. So what we're getting in our mental fitting is literally wired into the unconscious. It's fixed. It's a part of us. It's wired in like our handedness. And we're understand that our hands, hey, one's dominant, one's inferior, but we haven't been informed. Our minds do the same things with our energy and our focus and so on. And so we can go in and start keying in on this right away. And if we address the stress, you start getting the best of your physical capabilities right away. And he went on, it didn't happen overnight. We started applying similar things in his game. We started going back into the past, looking at some different things that were even unconventional versus sports psychology books. We got him away from the target, actually into more of his move and what he was into, like more in control of. And within, I want to say, we have this story posted. I want to say it was just a couple of weeks, 6 or 7 weeks, he had his first professional win.
Wow,
amazing.
And from there, again, he had the physical capability to do it, but here's his mind locked down in stress. And what's happening to most golfers is what we kind of stumbled across is the hidden performance killer, the reason for the inconsistency. So we all hit it great on the range, or we're taking a lesson and our coach is like, oh my God, you're hitting it so good. And then we go to the course and it's like we're a different player, or it's like swing just isn't the same way, right? And then we go off the course and we get back to the range, and guess what? Swings back to normal and we're striping it and it's feeling fluid again. And what do we say? Well, it has to be more of my technique. So let me run and work on my technique more, because that's obviously what's breaking down. But if you're hitting it really good on the range, or let's say we're having a great front nine, and then suddenly we make the turn and we're hitting it different. It's not the motion breaking down. It's the subtle mental stress or these changes in the way we're using our mental energy, our focus, making our decisions and so on, that's actually breaking down the motion in the golf swing. And so we're really excited because regardless if you are shooting in 100 or you're posting around scratch, you have a 10-shot scoring window. And just by understanding your personalized stress, you can actually shrink that scoring variance and get more out of your game, even if you're not practicing as much. You're going to be able to give your brain the environment to allow your body to actually do the movements that are natural and you've trained yourself to do. Hope I didn't get too long-winded there.
No. That's an awesome explanation. One of the things that really stood out for me, John, when I listened to that, you talk about the mental golf type being ingrained in you as a person, like your handedness, being left-handed or right-handed. As it transpires, not only Andy and I at the opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to our mental golf type. He's a right-hander and I'm a left-hander. And
really? Wow.
Yeah, we
That's like
really
a perfect yin and yang right there.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's why we get on well. So it got me thinking that if we were to swap clubs for a round and I was to play with Andy's clubs and he was to play with my clubs, how much that would mess around with us, like how difficult that would be. And sort of with that analogy in mind, what I love about your model is that you're not taking this one size fits all approach to the mental approach to golf, but you're actually applying it for what each individual needs. And so sort of, I think that's a good way for our listeners to understand it, is a bit like that left-handed, right-handed thing, but like you actually have developed things that are specific for different types of golfers. I think that's what makes you unique. And I'd like to hear a bit about, how that's come about and how you apply that for different personality types. Feel free to use us as guinea pigs if you want to as well. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to just relay off that point. So going off-handedness, everybody listening right now can just do a simple test to show how this works. I love that analogy with going out with the opposite set of clubs, because essentially that's what people are doing mentally. So like, for example, Andy's situation, we're told by a lot of psychologists, hey, go and practice this way, but when you get to the course, engage the target, react to the target. Well, that's actually employing that other side of his focus, and it's actually going to hold him back. So regardless if he's working really hard, when he gets to the course, it's going to feel like more work, more effort, more concentration to produce mediocre. Or maybe you're leaving the course feeling like, man, I played okay, but I just feel like I'm leaving it out there, like I have so much more in the tank. So here's a quick little test you can do at home. Take out a sheet of paper and a pen and just sign your name with your dominant hand. And just notice the performance and notice how it feels. Notice the result. And then flip it, put it into your left hand, and imagine you got to sign the autograph now with the left hand. And again, try to make it good, but notice the performance, how that felt, notice the result. So I saw you were doing it, Steve. How would you say your performance one felt as you were signing your name?
Here you go. Performance one. And whilst I play golf left-handed, I'm actually right-handed dominant in the rest of my life. So it's strange, John. Don't try and understand it. A day in my head is a very, very strange place. But yeah, I mean, obviously one is just like breathing, like it's easy. You just do it. You don't even have to think about it. The second is very uncomfortable, and is, obviously the outcome is poor. And even not really even knowing where to start, how to make the shapes, like it's very, very foreign.
Yeah, so more work, more concentration,
Yeah.
just to produce a mediocre or a worse result, right? But
Yeah.
whenever we're playing great, it feels like our first signature. When you're having your peak days, you come off, you're never like, hey, this was hard. John, it was so difficult. The weird puzzle is it's so easy, it feels so normal and natural and effortless. You go, why the heck can't I do this every day? This was a breeze, right? And you ask players on those peak days, like outside of your technique, what did you do? And they scratch their heads. They have no idea. If they knew, they would do it more often, create that day more often in their experience. Same thing on a poor day, right? You come off and you're working that left hand, and it's a grind and it's not clicking, and you go, well, outside of hitting it poor, what was the difference? And again, people scratch their heads. So what we try to bring to light is, what are your mental strengths? Most mental game things, when you read, it's about fixes and faults. This is wrong, now let's try to correct. What we try to identify first and foremost is, this is your gift. Now, your gifts get overlooked a lot. And the reason is it feels like your right hand. So Steve, it feels normal, natural, effortless, that we make the assumption that everybody's doing it this way. They have to, because it's so easy. No, the reason it's really easy for you is because it's actually a mental strength and a mental gift. We just have never been told we have a right and a left hand. And so by keying in on the strengths, again, that causes your mind to relax. Let's think of another analogy. If I had a target out there and I told you to throw a ball at it, I mean, how awkward would it be if you were using your less dominant hand? But if then I could say, okay, Steve, put it in your dominant hand now and throw it, confidence comes back right away. Performance is right there. And this is kind of what we're bringing to light with people. And then also what it shows is what your left hand is, essentially, what your inferior preferences are. And believe it or not, we have predictable ways of responding in stress. We respond the same way. So content changes, but the underlying way we're using our minds in these situations is predictable based to our personality type. So the very first way mental golf type really helps is, one, identifying strengths and stressors. Now you still have to deal with your habits. So you're going to get to the course and you're still going to have those old habits in place because you just never disciplined it or never had that awareness before. We were in first level of learning. We just don't know what we don't know. Now we start becoming more aware of this. So what do we have to do? We got to be a good learner. Level 2 of learning is a little frustrating, guys, because you start becoming aware of what you need to do, then you're doing it, you're like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. But then we still have the habits of stress come back, and we got to deal with that too. But now, with if you do your mental fitting, well, you can look back on those rounds or those situations on the course and actually start seeing the correlation in how you were using your mind there and why the performance had changed. So now, as we start elevating our recognition and awareness of our personalized stressors, we can actually do something about it. And not just do anything about it generally, but stuff that's based specifically on how you're wired. So again, like switching those hands and throwing it at the target, people can change their swing in just a matter of seconds. So we have the free fitting, and then you can get into the free lesson portal and kind of go in where one of the contrasts is with you guys is that you have an extrovert and an introvert. And something, guys, is something as simple as this. So this is our energy management source. And there are two ways that we manage our mental energy. We could be extroverted and we can be introverted, and we do both. So everybody does all things. Extroverts are designed to put their energy out to the world, to talk, to engage, to put their energy out. And as they direct their energy outward, they actually get refueled. So, Steve, it's probably a lot easier for you to be engaging all day, and that keeps your energy level high than sitting and doing your taxes by yourself in front of your computer.
100%.
Where that might not bother Andy so much. He might not want to have to deal with a lot of the people around and would rather have private time to sit and do his tasks and kind of do that. He's going to stay a little bit more energized through that day.
Yeah, 100%.
Are designed to conserve their energy. So we see a different expression of that. They come across more reserved, more cool. Sometimes they're not as talkative because, again, they're conserving energy. As they conserve energy, they get recharged. As they interact through the day, put energy outward, it's draining. And they're going to need some downtime or alone time to rebuild that energy. So two classic examples on the golf course. We got Tiger, the introvert, and we got extroverted Phil Mickelson, right? Two wildly successful players, totally different management strategies when it comes to their energy.
One left-hander and one right-hander in that as well. I like that, John. Nicely done.
Right. Actually, it's quite funny. When you see Phil playing good, what do you see? Probably what's similar to what Steve's doing, talking out shots. He's engaging with his playing partners. You see Phil, he's waving at the gallery, walking with a bit of swagger. I mean, even with his body language, he's expressing himself outwardly. And he's getting re-energized and charged by this, and he's going to be playing great. Predictably, though, when he starts getting poor or things start going south, you'll see that energy shift. He'll go from being extroverted and talkative and engaging to becoming introverted. He's going to get quiet. You're going to see his head come down. His inner world is going to be just kind of like this little frame around him. And he's going to get caught in his head now, stewing about what happened or what's going to happen. And as a result, there's a mental
that, John, sorry to jump in, but that when I read the personality profile and that was the descriptor of what I do when I'm playing poorly, which is written by you, we've never met. And it was like you were piercing into my soul, right? Because that is exactly what happens. And things are going bad and the world just, yeah, it was amazing.
You can see even in the free members area, we have some demonstrations with one of our coaches. And you have the extrovert and you say, okay, for the next 3 shots, you can't say a word.
Yeah.
And this girl, she's there, acting it out. She's ready to explode. And what's happening to her performance is she's a competitive pro. She's chunking shots. She's towing them. They're all over the place. And then finally he goes, okay. He goes, you could talk again. Tell me what you actually want to do here. And it was like, oh, the pressure cooker ended. And the next shot, striped, solid, right then, one swing. Simply by engaging and relaxing the mind like that, it takes the stress away. Something so simple, it just gets overlooked. But now you know that you can start managing your energy better. So like talking to your buddies or engaging in the action, even when things are going bad, is actually going to help you break free of that, not staying in the head, trying to come up with like the fix or what happened. And opposite for the introvert. So you see Tiger Woods, right? He's cool, calm, collected out there. I saw him in Oakmont back in '08 or '09. I was on the second tee waiting for him. He came down. There's thousands of people. Tiger's here. His eyes are on the tee marker. He's in his book, tossing the grass, but he's here. He's walking. He's looking really confident, but his eyes are gazing more at the ground. He's blocking out the external factors. What happens when introverts get stressed? They get caught up in the environment. They start worrying about other people. They start hearing the other sounds going on, all these things going on out here. And as their energy goes out, guess what? They start getting stressed out. You might even see them have a lash out. You might see them get more expressive or even more talkative. And Tiger demonstrates this all the time. What happens when Tiger hits a shot? There's a club slam. He's looking in the gallery. He's like, it's that guy. Get him out of here. I heard his phone go off, whatever. And he's all engaging here. And as he's going out into the environment, again, that introvert, they're going to slip. Now, again, let's look at how many mistakes we make. We all want to emulate Tiger because Tiger's been wildly successful. But if we're extroverted, which 75% of the population are, guess what? That's a counterproductive strategy. Trying to go out with that intense focus, not talk to anybody, not engage, win at all costs type of mentality. It's taking 75% of the players away from that. It's actually creating stress in just that. Now you're going to have less of performance than you just had on the range. And vice versa. I mean, I talk to tons of introverts, tons of introverted kids, especially teenagers, junior players. Parents are like, hey, you don't look like you're having any fun. Why aren't you talking to anybody? You should be out there socializing. Why don't you get out there and talk? Now they're forcing the kid to go against that wiring. The introvert doesn't want to do that. It's actually taking away from their ability to perform. Because again, as they start getting too caught up in all the exteriors, it's taking them away from that space where they're comfortable and that quiet inner space where their energy levels are high. There's enough of an output of energy for the golf shot. So I have to remind introverts all the time, like, it's okay that you don't engage that much. It's okay you stay more to your own game. And introverts need to find that time, even if they're with their buddies. Like, you could start the rail and Andy a little bit, Steve. You just keep them talking, keep them talking, talking. And then what Steve needs to do is, or Andy, you got to go and learn that, like, when is that now interfering with your focus on your shot?
Yeah.
Yep.
And when that's happening, what do? Maybe go, okay, I'm going to grab my wedge up and walk up myself here. And you're going to find some of those quiet pockets to be able to get by yourself to just get recentered again, to get that energy back. And then, hey, you might be able to go back to talking in another shot or two where you're finding like yourself balanced again. But that's where an introvert, especially playing with friends, they got to learn how to manage and monitor that, especially if you're playing for some money or it's, anything on the line.
Yeah, look, it's really interesting because I mean, if you take sort of Tiger Woods for example, you just talked about that he's really within himself. Because I always used to look at Tiger and I thought he fed off the crowd. Because there's lots of noise, especially when you get sort of to this week the Masters and huge galleries and huge noise, and you go, oh, he's feeding off the crowd, but it's actually the opposite. He's within himself, and the crowd is feeding off him. So then, I, after, because I've now sort of gone and purchased the ISTJ program. So I'm about sort of a third of the way through level 1. So I've been through the introverted area, and I've started to apply that a little bit on the golf course. We were sort of just talking about my round yesterday. And both, I'm a little bit into the sensing, the second area, and just trying to stay within my bubble, just getting my energy come from within. I'm talking to my playing partners in between shots, but then when I'm walking to my ball, I'm sort of moving away from playing partners just to get back into my own head. And one thing that I really like about the sensing areas is the means orientated approach and being really process focused and just being in my own head and just getting back to that process. I've found, I was talking to Steve about it yesterday, is that I was having a good round yesterday and I felt a lot more comfortable as the round was progressing. And I traditionally I've sort of, fought nervousness a little bit. And, certainly sort of, when I'm having a really good score, it's really uncomfortable. And we were talking about this a few weeks ago because I was having a good round again a few weeks back. And yesterday I found that I was so much more comfortable in that space. And I'm only sort of, as I said, about a third of the way through through the course, but I'm just finding those uh, sort of the mental golf type and the areas that I need to be focusing on to be really helpful.
That's fantastic. And to your point, I just heard uh, one of the videos of Rory. He was talking, he goes, process over prize is his mantra.
Mhm.
Because again, when we're starting to focus on process, we're staying to our responsibility. So there's already an increased level of comfort and confidence. But what I heard too is you say, like, when you're making birdies, you're still getting a little nervous, right?
Yeah.
So
Mm.
what I would say is we do have three levels of mind, as I was discussing. We have our operating system, mental golf type, and then we have our subconscious. That's kind of our hard drive. That's our self-image, contains our memories, our belief systems, the things that we've created, that composite. So even if we share the same mental golf type, we're not the same person
Mm.
because it was formed in this hard drive through our experiences and what we believe to be true about ourselves. So when I hear that, what I would say is now we want to address a little bit of that area of your mind to be able to also make a big boost. So one thing you could start saying is hey, I'm comfortable making birdies because that's why I practice.
Mm. Yeah.
I love making birdies because this is why I play.
Mm.
I'm a par and birdie guy. I
Yeah.
like that. I'm comfortable with that. We start using our self-talk to begin making a change. And this even happened. My dad passed away in December, but he was one of my favorite golfers to work with. He had Parkinson's for one, a god awful golf swing.
Wow.
Somehow managed to win his league several times because of his mental prowess, because I was
Yeah.
always
Amazing.
working on him and he was
Yeah.
always hearing stuff. And I was sharing a story with him about one of my pros, and we were talking about the same thing, like getting comfortable going deep. And let's start using our self talk as a way to start building that new mental picture. And my dad's like, you know what? I can do that too. He's like, I'm a par and bogey guy. He's like, I'm a par and bogey guy. I work hard at this. I know how to do that. It's really not that hard to get a
Yeah.
par and bogey. So he started changing his mindset that season. He won his league. And
Mm.
so even with someone at his level, again, shrinking his scoring variance. And
Mm.
everybody has their own good. But here's the thing. Here's what people need to know about affirmations and things. It's good to be saying that and stuff, but we have to have the emotion also with it. For one, the emotion is really kind of what gets the subconscious going. So he was putting that belief into it too. So we just can't say the words. We want to add the belief. But there are two times in your day when your brain is most receptive to your communication. And that's your first and last 20 minutes of every day.
Right.
So what we've learned in hypnosis is, well, this isn't from hypnosis, but we have four brain waves from EEG research primarily. We have beta, full awake alertness. It's a short, fast one. That's primarily judging. It's what we develop when we're adults. Information comes in. Is this good for me? Is it wrong for me? Is it, all this stuff? It's just analyzed. And then we have alpha and theta, which are kind of our meditative states, light and deep. And then we have delta, which is unconscious sleep. Alpha and theta are what we walk around as kids. And this is when our big feats of learning take place.
Mm.
And we're absorbing information and acting on it. They're not studying flashcards or doing all these tedious processes to learn. They just soak it in and it's
Mm.
there. Well, in the mornings when we're waking up, our brains are cycling through these brain waves. And for the first 20 minutes of your day, you're in alpha brain waves and a receptive time frame. And you can literally start using that time in your day to really take charge of it and shape your self-image and shape how you're thinking and feeling through the day. So a lot of our pros, we talk about really owning that space, especially the first 90 seconds. Like your brain wants to know and set the rudder for the ship for the day and wants to know what type of day it is. So we get them into the habit of, where feet touch the floor, they slap their hands and say a real positive affirmation like, what a glorious day it is filled with love, opportunity, and success.
Yeah.
Well,
Wow. That's
with
it's
that
really
right, you're
interesting.
into the
That's cool.
subconscious, right?
Yeah.
Or it could be whatever it is that you want, but something to get your day going. And then whenever you're looking yourself in the mirror while you're doing your morning routine, that's like programming time.
Mm.
That's when you want to be telling yourself, hey, I'm comfortable making birdies. I'm a birdie making machine. This is why I practice. You know, when I get on the greens, I just, you know, I dominate. I know how to go low.
Yeah.
And that your brain is wide open during that time. And if you can stay consistent with the things you're feeding it, like just brushing your teeth, pretty soon, within a couple of weeks, you're going to see this like compounding interest. Like you are going to feel and be performing different about yourself. And same as going to bed at night. So we call it kind of like our morning mantras and our evening echoes. And so as we're going to bed at night, brushing our teeth, same thing. We want to be getting into those spaces, into those visualizations, and be directing our brain. Difference is when we go to sleep, we say, hey, tonight I'm going to dream wonderful, powerful, positive dreams. And when I wake up, I'm going to be energized and motivated to go out and have another great day. And what you'll find is if you do this even for a week, you'll start dreaming of your successes. You're going to start seeing yourself out there in those competitions. I mean, even when I was doing my work and I would do this, I would have dreams. I was working with Rory McIlroy and things. I wake up and have all these different insights. And it was all just because of getting the brain put in that receptive time and dropping in really powerful seeds. And one thing that we to everybody, and I'll dial down the caffeine, I promise, guys, is the ultimate one if you want it. This is the one that I love. It's for everything and for everybody. Every day and in every way, I get better and better. Every day, in every way, I get better and better. And if you just did that 10 times during those critical periods of your day, in that alone, you are going to start seeing life transform from the inside out. It's really tremendous. And that one really works well because your brain can't reject it. It's not like I'm confident on the tee box. No, you're not. You just, you know, duck hook the last 3 shots, right? It gets rejected. But that idea, especially at nighttime, it goes in, and the beautiful thing about your subconscious is it knows already everything you're working on. It knows what your goals are, and it
I
just
love
begins
this.
to apply that.
I love this, John. The self-image question is a big one, and it's one I've personally battled with because as someone who over the last few years has gone from, you know, sort of mid to high teen handicap into single digits, I've found that my self-perception there's been a lag for it to catch up to where my game has been. So physically I've improved faster than mentally I've believed that I've improved, if that makes sense.
Yes, 100%. We have to
so
kind
that's
of
always so that's always been a challenge. And another thing that we have come up against a few times, and this has sprung up in a few interviews that we've done with various people, is that you know, and I think it's linked to you saying that you need emotionally to go there rather than just the words, because the brain can recognize BS a mile away and it will reject that as soon as it suspects it. The Australian male as well, in particular, what we've come up with, what we've kind of discovered through a few different conversations with people, the Australian male is very self-deprecating and very cynical. And we always have a tendency of downplaying our achievements and overemphasizing our shortcomings. You know, I know that's not limited to Australians, but it seems to be amplified a little bit in Australians. And it's
Sure.
this,
Now,
you know,
personal life, I would say, you know, do your thing. But in golf, I'm going to tell you, here's kind of a couple things you'd want to know about that. Okay. So that's a big challenge for every golfer. You know, it's definitely not something just for Australians. And you see it all the time with players. They stripe it and they go, oh, I should have done that. I should do that all the time. Yeah, it was okay. Then they hit it poor and they obsess about it. And there's emotion and there's different things tied to it. So they have it backwards. So most players would like to get more of their successful moments happening again, I'm assuming, on the course rather than their struggles. And in order to do that, what we have to start learning to do is give ourselves credit where credit's due. Because again, your emotion is linked to what you're going to remember. So if we're out there and hitting poor shots and now we're having big emotional displays to that, that's actually going directly into the subconscious. Subconscious doesn't discern, guys, whether it's a good or bad thing. It's like the soil of the ground. Whatever goes in there, it supports. That's its job. Its job isn't to discriminate. It's assuming what you're doing there is what you want and what you want to be cultivating. So when a player's getting mad and they're having a lot of negative emotions, what the bad thing is they're reinforcing that in their brain. They're going to actually remember that more. It's going to get reinforced, and the likelihood the next time they're in a similar situation, that's going to be what the experience is going to be drummed up from their memory bank. If we can start learning to give credit where it's due, guess what? Now we start storing our good stuff. So we always want to be reinforcing the positives and going neutral if we can for the things that aren't what we want. If we can just suspend our judgments for a little bit or our emotions for 10 seconds, then go into our post-shot analysis, it does wonders for us. But yeah, reinforcing it. And if you have like a power gesture, like think back to when you made a big putt or you did something great in sports, you probably have a gesture already anchored in there. And you can use that too to help kind of fire off and stimulate some of those positive emotions as you're doing visualization or when you're doing something good. But yeah, it's directly tied to memory. So at least in your golf game, try to be neutral if you can, if it's not going well. But your minds are always moving towards dominant thinking. And if you have that with emotion, energy, and motion, now the brain's really moving towards it. So the question is always like, what do you want to remember and what do you want to store? So post round, good activity, go through your shots, write down all your 10 out of 10s, your 9 out of 9s, go back through it, relive it. Yes, lock that in, take the gripping of your club, and feel that and store that into your brain. Go, yes, I want more of that. And you can make it, if you're a visual person, make it bigger and brighter, add better music, make it compelling in your brain and say, yes, this is for me.
Yeah.
And then the ones that aren't those 10 out of 10 experiences, hey, we don't have to go through a negative thing, but look at your plan. Okay, next time in that situation, what's the better way of doing things? And here, maybe in this case, just going back to the energy management, maybe it's just like, hey, I needed to be talking out my shot there. And next time in this situation, I'm going to talk about my shot. And now we're going to be having that to replay, and it's not going to be staying into the mistake. So we transform mistakes into lessons simply by finding the learning. It turns into now a lesson. And now our brain has a new mental movie to be playing out.
It's interesting, John, and just coming sort of, back to that affirmations and sort of, the certainly first thing in the morning, most people have a tendency, and I'm guilty of this as well, of just rolling over and picking up your phone and start scrolling through, whether it be the news or social media or whatever. But having that, I guess that reinforcement, that the affirmations and the reinforcement of your good habits. And then obviously sort of post round and then before you go to bed. But one thing I've seen in the program, which Steve and I have covered, and I haven't mentioned this to Steve that it's in the program, but we've both talked about and you've got it in optimizing in the subconscious mind around the meditation and spending time meditating. It's something that Steve and I really, really struggle with. First of all, allocating time to meditate, but the actual sitting down and doing it, which I think is sort of part of or potentially is part of either your morning routine or your evening routine. That seems to be where, in what you're saying, where it's, best placed, but the actual doing it, we both really struggle there. So how do you see that fitting into to someone's routine on a regular basis?
Sure. Well, there's two processes we have inside a mental golf type. We have the mental fitness, which is more hypnosis-based and neuro-linguistic programming. That's where you're going to relax, and we're deliberately trying to fill the mind with the new programming. Meditation doesn't have to be exclusive to just doing the sitting time. And I can completely relate. It is hard to find the time, especially once you sit down and you become aware of the gerbil wheel and you go, oh my gosh, am I even doing this? And the mind's racing out of control.
100%. 100%.
What that process is all about is learning to actually quiet the mind and empty the cup, which is actually the harder process for people to do. So in the program, we have 2 5-minute meditations that basically teach you the common practice. The practice itself is really simple, but again, working it and getting good at it takes lifetimes. So I can explain the basic process right now. I mean, the basic process of meditation is very simple. As you become aware of your breathing in, you mentally acknowledge, I'm aware I'm breathing in. And as you're aware of your exhale, you mentally acknowledge, I'm aware I'm breathing out. And so it can be simplified to a simple in and out, or after you get used to that, you can add in your own affirmation, calm, confidence, or relax, focus, whatever it is you like to do on the inhale and exhale. Now, what's going to happen as soon as you sit down to do this type of process, your brain goes, oh, I got to go to the store. Oh, I need to call Andy. Oh, what was it that I shot last week? And the mind is going to race like crazy because it's just untrained. And so the practice is as you're aware that your mind has wandered, it doesn't matter what it's wandered to. We don't judge it or analyze it. We just bring the attention back to the breath. So again, we bring it back in, out, and your mind is going to go dart out there again, all over the place. And again, once you start becoming aware of it, we're bringing it back to the breath. And believe it or not, with just a little bit of time, you'll find that you'll be slowing that machine down significantly, and that you can actually get these pockets of quiet. Now, you don't have to just sit at one, like in a sitting that's helpful because it's more intentional and you're starting to get into the practice, but you can do this when you get in your car. So when you sit down in your car, connect with your breathing a little bit. Keep your attention to that. As you start wandering, bring it back to your breath. And that's the basic practice. And I know it doesn't sound all that exciting and things, but as you get into the practice, believe it or not, what you're feeling and experiencing inside of yourself is really some special states and some really high levels of peace that until I got into it, it would be hard to kind of wrap my mind around. And it got to the point in my meditation career where I could sit for an hour easily and it feels just like minutes pass by. But I didn't get there overnight. That was like a 20-year journey to be getting there. What do we need in golf? Well, if you can devote 5 or 10 minutes or do this throughout your day, what you're going to help yourself to be able to do is quiet your mind for those 2 seconds over the ball. So you can start incorporating now your breath into that trigger to be present and peaceful at address position. It will improve your timing and you'll know what that's like to get quiet. But that's not it. How many times have we gone, like Andy was saying, he was out at was 3 under going into those final couple holes. How many times the mind wants to dart ahead into the outcome and we're starting to get anxious or we're starting to get insecure. That same meditative practice of just detaching from that thought and bringing your mind back to your breath, or what our golfers do is we're bringing it back to the process. It's okay that you wander out to say, hey, I'm playing great. I like to finish with this. However, if you're staying out there, now we're multitasking. We're speculating while we're trying to perform. So what do we have to do? Practice bringing it back. Yeah, I am going to finish good because I'm going to do this process well here. These habits and that mental skill comes from that basic process of sitting and learning to still and quiet the mind. And it's stuff that everybody has to practice. It's unfortunate, like our mind has just been filled with so much stimulus that unless we put in some dedicated time to it, it's hard to really slow it down. But the more you do, the more presence you can have, the more power you have to get back into the moment, disconnect from just things that aren't helpful. And so we included a couple in there, but once you do it again, it's trying to just build it into your day. So
yeah,
there are
and
apps
look,
Yeah.
I mean, I find that like active type meditation is a lot easier than actually sitting down. I've got a couple of dogs, so I go out and walk the dogs, and I find trying to be present, to be, or even just going out for a walk, I find that to be much easier than
Sure.
actually just sitting down and you know, whether it be 5 minutes or 10 minutes of meditation. But the more we sort of get into the conversation around around mental golf, the more I think it's a really important skill to have to be able to really
It comes
quieten
up
the mind
all the time.
Absolutely,
All the time.
100%.
Well, when you really start looking at the top geniuses of the 1%, right? Like the 1% of the 1%, the iconic athletes. This is one thing that they all have in common. Most of them are really avid meditators. Tiger Woods was taught meditation and was doing hypnosis early on in his career. Phil Jackson, you know, the Zen master, with Michael Jordan and all the great basketball players doing the same thing. Prior to every game, they were dimming the lights. They were getting people through a guided meditation, getting them into optimal states and walking them through those mental rehearsal processes. And as you start looking at them, you're going to see it's a common trend among a lot of the best. Now, 5 minutes might still be pretty ambitious goal getting started. So even doing 30 seconds, and then as you're walking, again, you can do a walking meditation. Do the same practice, connect with your breathing, but just be doing it through movement. As your mind wanders, don't entertain it, bring it back as you're aware and go back to your breathing. Same type of process. So on the golf course, we teach kind of like breath walking, we call it. So it's based on 4x4 box breathing that they teach the US Navy SEALs and a lot of the different military. It's a pretty common technique. But what we teach our golfers to do is sync it up to their steps. So not only are they doing the count 4 in, hold, 4 out, hold for 4, but it's with their steps. So it's in, 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, 3, 4. And they're doing it with their steps. And again, that's another way of getting present, regulating the heart rate, and kind of getting chilled out. We kind of do this when I caddy on tour. You know, it's a really big moment. We miss a green. My guy's a really good ball striker. He doesn't like chipping as much. I say, just do some breath walking. So it looks like he's surveying the green and everything, but what he's really doing is just getting himself centered. He's an introvert. He's counting, he's going through his breath, and he's just getting himself in, feeling those steps and getting present. Now he's returned back. He's feeling a lot more calm. We go through the rest of the routine and step up and have a lot of success. So you doing that with your dog is a nice way of applying it. But you could do it again, like a part of your evening routine, even a couple minutes while you're laying in bed. It can be connected to, like, again, a positive thought. So we're allowing our mind to wrap around some imagery and things with it too. But the more you can do it, the more quiet you can get. But those are the two processes, and it's a great skill to be able to stop your brain, to be able to kind of quiet or bring it back to what's important. A lot of benefit.
Yeah. So then, John, interesting, because that seems to me that the breath work seems to be more suited to an introvert personality. So, you know, you talked about when you caddied on tour, the pro was an introvert, so it really helped him. So how does that then apply if you're an extrovert and you need to sort of, you know, get it out there and talk? How would you apply it in that scenario?
And thank you for that
unfortunately,
question,
not
Andy
every
Walker.
extrovert can talk at all times, right? So we do
Yeah.
have to learn some different ways of engaging. And so again, for myself, when I'm using my breath, I'll do different things, like I'm exhaling and getting rid of the stress. And I can imagine dissipating it out and exhaling it out there, or breathing in. But unfortunately, there's a lot of really quiet people on the golf course. And whenever the big money's on the line, everybody gets even more quiet into their little group. And so not all times am I talking, even as an extrovert, because it's not all social. So one common stereotype is it's just a social dynamic. It's more about the direction of the mental energy. So for me, I'm an extroverted intuitive. So I get really stimulated by things that are engaging in my imagination, things that are stimulating ideas or lectures. And I think back to listening to speakers. I'm not talking or putting energy out, but yet I'm enthralled, because again, it's the outwardness of my mental energy. So for me, I'm not trying to go within with my breath. I'm using my breath as a way to get out again, whether I'm breathing in the energy around me and using it to shift my body language, or I'm kind of imagining dissipating it out, blowing it out, getting out of my head and releasing the energy outward.
Yeah, that kind of resonates quite nicely, because and I'm glad, Andy, that you asked that question, because if you go back to, I think it was episode 3 of the Missing Links Golf Show, when we were talking about our development plans, when I first introduced the concept of having a go at meditation, and Andy Walker laughed at me and just said, "Yeah, we'll see how that goes."
Doesn't sound like me.
And I'll be honest, it didn't go well. And the reason it didn't go well, John, and I think you've kind of enlightened me on a few things just without knowing it in this conversation, is because I was trying to probably fight my natural instincts and try and go too inward, when obviously, you know, then I'm still hearing all of the things that are going on out in the environment, like the cars on the road, the birds in the trees, the dog barking in the yard, and those sorts of things. Trying to block that out, which was just not going to work. But I was also, and the word judgment floated in there at some stage as well, because then I was also critically judging my own ability to meditate whilst I was meditating, and berating myself for not being good enough at it when I should be better at it at my age, and all of those sorts of things, which then came in, which made me then. And then the other thing as well is kind of going, oh, for God's sake, there's so much other stuff I need to do with my time at the moment. This feels really self-indulgent. and I could be being far more productive doing other things. So all that turmoil was going on to the point where I just thought, I'm wasting my time, and I stopped doing it. But I feel like that getting over the judgment piece, accepting that the energy pushes out rather than trying to block that, actually could be
Well,
quite
another
useful.
way of mindfulness, it doesn't just have to be into your breath. So you
Yeah.
could also use those auditory stimuli.
Yeah.
So one of the basic practices of meditation, of insight meditation, is just being aware that sound exists. So not trying to label the sounds, but just hearing, just listening. And again, when you start doing that, your brain has this weird way of just shutting down, and it starts expanding out, and you start picking up on all kinds of different sounds. And so there's a forms of doing auditory meditations and things like that as well. But when you're getting those judgments, here's the cool thing with the meditation. We can stop it because all we do is go, okay, it doesn't really matter the content of which my mind went to. We just bring it back to the breath
Mm.
and bring it back to the breath. And what we're learning is, hey, I don't have to be attached to those thoughts. And if I don't go chase that narrative, guess what? My brain stops getting entertained by that. And it's just shuts down. And there's a really weird thing. If you're really getting into a negative space during your meditation, what I used to imagine, which was great, which was like this crazy caravan, like this train going by of all the wildest, like kind of circusy type of thing you could imagine. And I said, okay, if my mind's going to go down this way, I'm going to just see it as this crazy caravan going by, and I'm going to watch it. And
Yeah.
again, what I did was I detached from it, and pretty soon I was just entertained by watching how creative my mind was. I was no longer negative, and I was a way to just get back into my breath. And that's really what it's teaching. It's teaching non-attachment. And non-attachment is such a wonderful skill to have. It's not detached. Detached is kind of like you don't care. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Non-attached is still matters, but we start releasing a lot of that internal talk, and we realize it doesn't have as much power because we start learning to let it go.
Mm.
And we can grab onto something that's a lot more productive for us. But it's a tough skill. I mean, it was a lot of those same battles. I was smiling because I can relate to them. I mean, I sat there and just,
Yeah.
powered through a lot of it, but I just kept getting back to the practice. And then again, it's not just when you're sitting, it's about bringing it into your day. And ultimately, that's what some of my teachers talked about. It was like, John, it's like finding that quality of presence through the breathing or through that sitting, but bringing that quality to the day with you. How do you bring that level of presence to your work, to your loved ones, to the things that you're doing? Are you really even present with that? And I started getting a lot more present as I was doing the meditation because I started discovering actually what that meant. And then bringing that to it really helped in a lot of areas of my life, for sure.
I think that's so important, and it's a bit of a common theme we've found with a lot of the discussions that we've had with some, and we're fortunate doing this. We get to talk to people with minds far larger than our own, and we learn a lot through other people's experiences. But it's all of those benefits. We're seeking golf improvement, and this is a show about improving our game and taking on some specific tournaments. But the byproduct of that is the life lessons that you can take with you to all other facets of your life, be that relationships, be that work, relationships with partners, relationships with kids, etc. It's it's just super important. So
And that's
really
what we're really
appreciate that.
proud about with mental golf type, because we're watching those parent junior relationships really
Mm.
heal, because parents are finally like, oh, wow, he's not the same as me. And now I understand why they're not that way. And let's now work on getting them to be productive with what they do well. And it's been really awesome seeing how some of those dynamics, just as like a natural side effect of just wanting the kid to play a little better golf. And then you start seeing some interesting dynamics like that take place.
That's
So,
incredibly cool. Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, look, and it's interesting because I mean, when I was playing seriously, the mental game was there, but it wasn't really talked about that much. I mean, there are a few books and stuff, and I've read now some books on the mental side of the game, and it seems to be very much a one size fits all approach that you need to do this, and this. And I've gone out and tried to apply those sort of concepts, and it just it hasn't worked. But the individual approach, I think, of the mental golf type, I'm really enjoying it. And yeah, you're right. It's not just golf. It's applied to life in general, because I now sort of see those sort of concepts and those tendencies in my kids, in my wife, and I'm now looking. I mentioned sort of Tiger Woods. I'm sort of seeing those tendencies in him and what his approach is. It really opens your eyes, I think, to the fact that it's not a one size fits all. It's very individual as much as being right-handed or left-handed.
Sure. And what happens is it's a pretty common experience because, again, people want to sell books and they have really good
Yeah.
athletes. And again, if we're under that paradigm, we go, hey, well, if it worked for so and so and they're our best player, then it must work for everybody that way. And so I found the same thing with some of the mental books. It's kind of anecdotal, or again, like we think back to that adage, aim small, miss small. Well, for Steve and myself, that's detrimental. It actually takes
Mm,
us into a stress state. Whereas
mm,
for centers like yourself, you're going to do really good. Like Steve and I got
mm.
to open up and hit the zones and the areas, and that actually frees up our brain.
I heard
And
you
but
talk about that on another podcast. I think it was with Josh Nichols actually, and I applied that in my next round, and it helped me so much because, prior to that, you're kind of going, no, aim at that specific part of the fairway, and for me that was like really
takes you more
counterintuitive,
into
and
your mechanics and
yeah,
things like that. And it's opposite for the sensors. I mean, they need to
yeah,
be more specific because the more specific they get, it takes them into that concrete action. Then it's
mm,
very much like kind of following recipe steps, and it gives a lot of confidence.
mm,
And so, yeah, what we really help with is there's a lot of great advice, and those mental game books are filled with tons and tons and tons of good suggestions. But it's a matter of really getting the discernment, right? Kind of like your golf swing. If you play a draw,
mm,
you don't want to be going to listening to the top guy playing the cut,
mm,
right? It might
mm,
be a
mm,
little bit counterproductive.
Yep.
We just never seen this before mentally. Now, if you at least go and get your free mental golf type, you have a better idea of being able to discern what information is good for you. And then you can appreciate why it could work for somebody else, but you have that ability to kind of sift through things now and go, yeah, this would really work for me. And I know why.
mm.
And we're not experimenting or guessing and testing anymore. So you can kind of streamline that process, go and read those books and extrapolate all the good stuff for you. And then the other things you don't have to apply. Similar, if I hit a draw, that applies for me, but that cut stuff doesn't. And so I'm going to take these nuggets for me, and there will be a lot of good application like that. But I
Mm.
bet as you start diving into more of your mental golf type, you'll go back to those books and actually find better nuggets
Mm.
that will apply for you. And also,
Yeah.
well, hey, I'm going to stay away from that because that's actually going to make some stress for me.
Mm.
That one is for Steve. Steve needs to be more target side.
Yep.
Or he'll say
Mm.
the opposite. That's more for Andy. That he's more talking concrete action, being player side with their focus, and a little bit more into the action.
Mm.
And
Mm.
it's a great way to be able to sift through that.
Well, I was just sort of thinking that given that there are 16 different mental golf types, you've got 16 books to write, John.
So that's why it's taken 14 years.
Yeah.
It's been a daunting task because you got to find the people, and then you're working through it and you're testing things.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
some personality types are like a needle in a haystack. And but yeah, we're really happy with it. We're going to be launching out some new things soon, and moving into the level 2 hopefully this year to releasing it out.
It's
But
very
yeah, we
cool.
got some more levels to the rabbit hole that we can go even more
Oh,
specific.
Awesome.
and isn't it a rabbit hole?
Oh,
But
yeah, it is.
John, I know we've just sort of ticked over the hour mark of this chat, which is what we had you booked in for. The amount of knowledge that you've shared so generously, it's just been phenomenal. So thank you so much for that.
Absolutely.
Um, for people that are listening, I have no doubt they want to dive in and get more information. So where can they find you? Where can we direct them to learn more about the mental golf type?
Sure. Mentalgolftype.com is where you can go and get access to taking the fitting and get started. The results are free. It's really simple. 3 simple steps. Go to the homepage, take the assessment, and then click confirm on your email, and you'll get a free mental game lesson in your full profile. And we're also on Instagram and YouTube at Mental Golf Type. You can go on there and do some deep dives into some of our content and things there as well.
Yeah, really cool. we will definitely be doing all of that. And we will drop the links to your website in the show notes for the episode as well, so people can jump on there and check that out. And I've got no doubt that there will be a few people that will do that. Really exciting. And mate, thank you so much for coming on the show. I personally have just gotten a huge amount out of this conversation.
Oh,
I
fantastic. And I
I
really
got a lot.
appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I got a lot out of reading the profile when I did the quiz, and I look forward to diving into a bit more of the material. But it's definitely affirmed a few things of the way that I approach the world. It's given me a few little light bulb moments as well, which is really cool. So we absolutely appreciate that. So
Oh,
thank you so much for
awesome.
coming on the show.
Guys, this was a pleasure. Please, hey, stay in the loop. Keep me in the loop with how things are going. And when you want to jump on just for your own games, when you guys want to chat again, let me know. Okay.
Yeah, that is
Awesome.
amazing. So there it was, Andy Walker. That was mind blowing.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
one of the best conversations I think that I've been fortunate enough to play a part in it. And like this pilgrimage, I was going to say
Mm.
journey, but let's go with
Yep.
pilgrimage
Yep.
that we've been on. I feel so fortunate with some of the people that have been so generous with their time and knowledge and been happy to share. Like
Absolutely.
this is John's IP. This is what he's worked on for
Yep.
15 to 20 years or longer
Mm.
to develop, yet is happy to come on our show, spill the beans, and share everything with the pilgrims and with us, and
Yeah.
help us in our journey. It blows me away a little bit when I think
Yeah.
about how fortunate that we are with this.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of people within golf who have that mindset of abundance where they give well, they don't give away their stuff, but they give away a lot of stuff. Like what John said. I mean, the to actually go through the process of getting your mental golf type is free. You can get on his website and do that.
Mm.
And there is a free part after that of a small part of the course. Obviously, I've then invested money into doing the expanded program, which I'm finding to be really, really helpful.
Yeah. Which
But
I
he's
will
also
be doing as well, because just that snapshot was just so valuable. And even in all honesty, even if you're not interested in paying the money, just doing the mental golf fitting, the free element,
yeah,
the awareness that gives you, that's really, really valuable anyway.
yeah, for sure, and yeah, it's so. And as we spoke, there are so many golf books out there that we've obviously read as well
Yeah.
on psychology that's just a blanket approach.
Yes.
Whereas, what he talks about in, as much as handedness is an individual, trait, so is certain elements of your mental sort of golf type. And it makes so much sense that I had no awareness of it prior to this. Or obviously, we've been reading golf books and, we just thought, oh, well, mental golf is mental golf. But this has just created a whole new like level. Yeah, it's really interesting just the depths and the amount of information that is out there and just how far this whole mental golf side has come from, when I mean, we've spoken about it when we were playing sport
Yeah.
competitively. It was, yeah, I mean, like it was, sort of suggested that, yeah, you probably should do a little bit there, but it wasn't what we have now.
No, and it would have been so helpful. Far out,
Oh,
it
for
really would
sure.
have. Really would. It's funny that you talk, going back in time, and I feel like we do a little bit of that in the last few weeks on this show. But
We're
I was
trying to.
I was recalling, one of the early times when we had a game of golf together,
Mm.
and I hadn't even thought about this for a long, long time, but just the conversation with John brought this up, and I remember just a fleeting thought at the time, going, "Wow, Andy Walker's not saying much. Seems like he's hating his life out on the golf course at the moment. Have I upset him? Have I done something? Have I said something? Do I talk too much? Do I not talk enough?" Like,
Mm.
and that was kind of funny, but like looking through the lens, that's just your natural tendency as a more introspective, introverted personality type on the golf course,
Yeah, yeah.
which is the opposite end of the spectrum to me.
I was in my tiger zone.
Apparently, it's quite off-putting, actually.
But I mean, that, and I guess that also, because we've also had a couple of games of golf where I've been playing quite poorly, especially at the start of my round, and I go really deep into myself when that happens, and get really reflective, and get really quiet, and try and just figure out what's going on, and having the knowledge now of what I have, it just makes so much sense that my
Mm,
natural tendency was to do that. It
mm,
wasn't
mm,
to
mm,
talk to others. It wasn't to talk it out and try and figure out a solution with someone else. It's me going deep into myself and just
mm,
self-reflecting and trying to figure that out, and it just makes so much sense.
mm. The other thing which I always found interesting playing golf is like if I was in, say in a group, two ball, three ball, four ball, whatever, and someone else in the group was getting really grumpy and
Mm,
really, really upset and throwing tanties and doing those
mm.
sorts of things, that would actually really put me off.
Yep.
Um, and that would kind of affect my approach. And I would find it difficult to, kind of enjoy playing well.
Yep.
Potentially is one way of explaining it.
Mm,
Like that would kind of affect me. And I think that's actually that natural personality type where in John's words, sort of it's not about always talking, but it's about your energy, which is going outwards, and you're
yes.
sort of focusing on the things that are external and going on around you.
Yep.
Whereas potentially for a more introverted style personality type, that would be actually less of an impact of
Mm.
how someone else is carrying on within the group.
Yeah,
Whereas for me, that actually,
I didn't care. If someone else,
I can
if someone
imagine.
else was carrying on, I was just like, yeah, whatever. That's your
Yeah,
stuff, dude.
yeah. Whereas actually that would kind of get under my skin a little bit. So
Mm.
it's good knowing that because now I can acknowledge that and let it go
Yes.
and kind of not, not hang on to that. So I
Yeah.
thought that was interesting.
Yeah, the other part of it that I think is really interesting is and he talked about the way Tiger Woods dealt with stress. And when things weren't going his way, he would then direct all his energy outwards, and he would, whether it be, get aggro and sort of, hit his club
Yeah,
into
yeah,
his
yeah, yeah,
bag, or he'd
yeah,
blame someone in the crowd, or,
yeah,
and that is so me. Like that
yeah.
is exactly what I do when I'm under stress. And the way I get out of that is I have to like turn that energy back inwards and go deep within myself. So to try and figure it out, as I mentioned before. So like yeah, it just makes so much sense. And all the pieces seem to sort of fall into place when you look at it from that perspective.
It does. Absolutely. There was another topic that came up, sort of second half of the discussion. I think you raised it unsurprisingly, and I feel like one of us raises it whenever we get the opportunity to just needle the other one, and that is our favorite preparation concept of meditation.
Yes. Yeah, definitely, definitely. Look, and I think that it's one of those things that the further we go down the line, the further, the more information we get. And John talked about it, that all the greats, the 1% of the 1% was the example I think he used. They
Mm.
all did, whether it be meditation, hypnosis, which I find to be like a really interesting concept. I have heard recently that Tiger did a lot of hypnosis
Yeah, yeah,
as a young
yeah,
bloke.
yeah.
Not something I would have ever sort of thought golf and hypnosis. I just wouldn't have put those two things together. So it's really interesting that that he was doing that. And obviously Tiger was well ahead of his time in the 90s when he was coming through and
Mm.
just starting out as a pro. But yeah, look, I think meditation's an interesting one, and I think that in the famous words of Thanos, it is inevitable.
Oh man,
Well, I
Thanos.
think that Thanos was I am inevitable, but if you're talking about meditation from the meditation perspective,
This is a whole
med,
nother
med,
level,
yeah,
Andy Hawkins.
meditation would be saying I am inevitable.
Oh, wow. What?
So
How
yeah,
many people have you quoted now? I don't know. I've lost count. But let's add Thanos to the list. This is gold.
yeah.
Um, Wow, I don't even know where to go from there. But oh no, I do, because there's another thing that it's on the meditation train.
Yep.
Um, we we keep coming back to it. It keeps raising its head. I think at some point we need to give it a go.
Yes.
Um,
Mm.
so that's a common theme that keeps popping up when we're having these conversations. Another common theme, obviously, that we're talking about a lot, and we're talking about more and more and more when we're talking about our rounds, and that is the concept of acceptance.
Yes.
Um, I don't know. I'm feeling a Buddhist retreat coming on, Andy Walker.
Yeah, yeah. We could like go to a monastery and like, there are those sort of where you spend 7 days in silence, just meditating. You're not allowed to
Oh,
talk
we'll
to anyone.
struggle so badly with that. I think we've established that with the mental
Uh,
golf type.
yeah.
That's
I
just,
look.
that's got stress written all over it.
I don't think there'd be too much content that we could sort of extract out of a
No,
week
what
like
we
that.
what we could do is have a 60-minute silent episode.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that's going to work, but you know, we could give it a crack, I guess.
Yeah, it's possible. It's
I'm sure it
possible.
hasn't
No,
been done before.
yeah, I'd be really interested to see the listening stats of how long people hang in there for.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So,
It's our meditation episode.
yeah,
Episode
that's
25,
yeah,
meditation.
meditation, just
Yeah.
silence. This is the opening theme song, 60 minutes of silence, and the closing thing. We're not doing that, Pilgrims. Okay, don't
No,
stress. We will
no,
not be doing
definitely
that.
not. No.
Not be doing that. Oh, fantastic. All right. Well, any closing thoughts, Andy Walker, on that awesome chat with John Weir
Well,
before we
well,
wrap up?
Well, I guess, I'm really looking forward to, and I'm sure that in the next few episodes we'll be able to expand a little bit more on, because we covered the introverted and the sensing part
Mm,
of my ISTJ mental golf type. The other part of it, the second two parts of it, is thinking and judging. So I'm really looking forward to getting into the content of those two areas, and that's something that, yeah, we'll definitely be talking about in the coming weeks, and that's just level one. Like there's actually another webinar series on consistency, and there's another
mm.
one on the champion's mindset, as well as the meditation webinars as well. So it's going to be, yeah, it's going to be an interesting next few weeks. I'm really looking forward to diving into the content.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And look, to be fair, we have got a lot coming in the next few weeks. So
We
I
do.
think if you enjoyed this episode and all of those nuggets of wisdom that John threw your way, then strap yourselves in, Pilgrims, because we've got some crackers coming in the next few episodes. I think more than likely, next episode, we've got a few rounds of golf that we need to unpack.
We
We
do.
need to go through some results from the last month from March and where
Yep.
things finished.
Yep.
People have probably got a little bit of an idea, given that they already know the result of the Macquarie Cup. But
Yep.
at the same time, we need to go through the leaderboard. A few more rounds that happening this week that we need to unpack, and then we've got hopefully some more special guests that'll be joining us over the coming weeks. So there's a
Yeah.
there's a lot coming our way in April. It's a very, very big month, and of course the Masters is also on this month. So there's a lot going on there. Andy Walker, by the time people listen to this episode, the Masters will be played and won, but we're
Yes,
recording before
we
tee
are.
off on day one. Who's going to win?
Look, my money, and whether it's through head or heart, I'm not sure, but I'm hoping Xander Schauffele gets up and wins. I really like the way Xander plays golf, and interestingly, I we had a bit of a chat off air with John, and Xander is very much along the same as
Mm,
as my mental golf type, which is probably why I enjoy watching him play. So look, I think Xander's just been incredibly consistent. There's a few question marks on whether he can get the job done in a major, but I certainly think he can. He's got a great mindset, and one that even after, he sort of imploded a little bit in the players, he came out of that and just went, it's a learning experience, man. Like, I'm going to go on to the next one. I'm going to do the same
Yep.
thing. I'm going to get out there and practice hard, learn what I can from this, and yeah, put one foot in front of the other. And I just think that that's such a great mindset to have. And I really admire where he is. So yeah, look, I reckon Xander might get up. At least I'm hoping he might get up. What about yourself? Where do you think the cards
Yeah,
will fall?
it's I think it's a really exciting tournament, this one. I think there's
Mm,
so many people that can win it. I think the obvious pick, which I'm not going to go with, but the one that, almost every second person that you talk to is talking about, Scotty Scheffler.
yeah,
And obviously, the guy's in incredible form. And if he putts well, going to be very, very hard to beat.
yep.
There's a few other people lurking around though that would be really, really solid place bets. And the ones that stand out to me on that list is Wyndham Clark,
Yeah.
John Rahm,
Mm,
obviously,
yep.
and Brooks Koepka. I
Yep.
think after last year's second place, they're all good ones to think about. But I'm tipping an Australian.
Oh, really?
I'm gonna
Okay.
I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna say that the Aussies, we're gonna get our second green jacket in Australia in the Masters this year.
Okay.
The question is, which of the group will it be? And there's a few options. So
Yeah. Yeah.
a man that's done it before, Adam Scott, he's playing some decent golf this year, and his swing looks in good shape. So
Putting as well. Like since he has made the move to the lab putter, his putting has improved over the last couple of years. His putting's improved out of sight, and it's
yes,
now his putting is now being talked about as a strength in
mm.
his game, which no, it was always his swing. People loved his swing, and he had the best swing in golf, and that's who a lot of people tried to emulate. But now his putting's being talked about as the strength of his game, which yeah, you wouldn't have thought that 5 years ago.
No, you wouldn't have necessarily thought that. Although, I mean, at the same time though, those two putts that he sunk to like on what was it on
2013
yeah, when he won the
when he
Masters in
won, yeah,
2013, yeah, like that was next level. They were
yeah,
15, 20 footers that he drained
yeah.
to win that, to force the playoff and then to win the playoff. But anyway, he's a chance, but I don't know that he's our lead chance. There's another guy who I'm super excited about seeing run around Augusta, and has played extremely well there previously, and that is Minwoo Lee, friend of the show.
Yes. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
Minwoo, brother of the great Minji Lee.
Yes.
But Minwoo,
Wouldn't be great to see him
let him
get
cook,
up
people.
and yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, as a major champion. I mean, I think
Oh,
that's got to happen at some point. He's just
so
got
much
some
talent.
and loves the spotlight, loves the
Yeah,
crowd, loves
loves
the
the big occasion.
environment. Yeah, huge,
Loves the big
huge
occasion.
big occasion
Incredible
player.
short game as well.
Mm,
Like he's got distance off the tee, but an incredible short game. I feel like Minwoo is almost made for Augusta at some
yep.
stage. But the Aussie, I think, who's probably most likely to bring home the green jacket, and he's getting my tip, is J Day.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mm.
I thought we were going to say Cam Smith.
No,
Uh,
I'm written him off.
yeah, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
he
Done.
had a withdrawal due to illness in Miami. Just I don't know. There's something about Cam's game at the moment to me that kind of feels like it's not clicking the way that it was, when he won the Open and was extremely dominant before he moved to live.
Mm, mm,
Look, I could sound like a fool by the time this goes to
mm.
air because he might have won it by now.
So do you
Um,
think he's peaked? Do you reckon he's on the downhill
I
slide
don't.
or do
I
you,
don't think so. No, I don't. I wouldn't go that far. I just think he's in a bit of a form slump.
yeah, right.
But I think give it another year or two, and who knows, it could come back. But I just don't
Mm,
feel that he's at his best at the moment.
yep.
Um, but
J
I've
Day.
I have really really liked what I've been seeing of Jason Day,
Mm,
particularly early
yep.
in this season. And in fact, going back a couple of months when he was putting together a couple of really strong performances in the early tournaments of the PGA Tour this year, I was about to get on one of the shows, like I'm talking 2-3 months ago, and call that he was going to win the Masters this year.
Yeah, right.
So I've been
Okay.
feeling this for a while.
Mm,
He has a great history around Augusta. He has played extremely well. He's been top five on a number of occasions. And in 2013, when Scotty won it, J Day was leading with a couple of holes to go. I think he
yep.
had two-shot
Yep.
lead with three to
Yeah,
play,
yeah. Yep.
and fell over on the last couple of holes. But
He
I,
he
I
also did did that with when Charles Schwartzel won. He was right up there and might have been
Yeah.
in the lead because there was the three of them, Scotty, Jeff Ogilvy, and J Day were vying, and the one who came through was Charles Schwartzel.
Yeah, that's
So
right. It came out of nowhere and like
yeah,
birdied about 11 of the last 5 holes.
yeah, exactly.
So which is an amazing effort.
It's
So
it's pretty impressive.
yeah, so I'm going to go with J Day. I think I feel like he's gotten past all of the health issues, the back injuries. Remodeled the swing.
Yeah,
I was watching a bit of the on the range day one, just some of the work that he was doing, just making sure that he was getting all these positions right. I don't know. I think he's a strong chance. I think he's
yeah,
playing
right.
well.
Okay. Well, I hope so. I mean, I'd love to see him win. It's and from a like and he's probably struggled a bit in recent times, but he used to be one of the best putters in the game. I
Mm,
mean, there was one year that he sunk, I don't know how many putts inside 6 foot. He hadn't
mm.
missed something in like 150 putts or something inside 6 foot, which is
Mm.
just absolutely
It's
remarkable.
insane, insane.
Yeah.
Insane. And like my understanding is that a lot of that went off the boil due to the back injury that he wasn't
Hmm.
able to then spend the time on the practice green
Yes.
to grind that out. But that seems to have been rectified with the changes that he's made. He seems to be a lot healthier, a lot fitter,
Hmm.
and able to do a lot of those things that he wasn't able to do for a little period of time. So, look, high hopes. But I what I was interested in as well, Andy Walker. I don't know if you know this statistic, but I saw a list of all of the representatives from various countries in this
Yep.
year's Masters field. I think it was something like 45 from the US. The next biggest contingent was 6 from Australia,
Yeah, right.
and then it was 5 from England. So it it's quite impressive how much the Aussie golf punches above its weight when it comes to getting people into the Masters field, and that's where I feel like there's just something building with Australian golf at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. Look, and I agree. And you look at Australian golf, very similar to say South African golf in
Mm.
that there's a,
Just more
that
depth, I think, at the moment.
yeah,
Bit more,
but like the Saffers also punch well above their weight, and they've won an extraordinary amount of majors for their population, as has Australia.
yeah.
So definitely, yeah, I see Australia as in the golfing world punching well above its weight, and has done since, yeah, certainly since well, I've been following golf.
Mm. So it's very exciting. Won't be a huge amount of sleep over the next few
No,
nights, or the last few nights for when people are listening to this. So this time travel thing is also giving me jet lag.
yeah, yeah,
But nevertheless, Andy Walker, it's been an epic day. So much to draw out of that interview.
yeah,
Massive thank yous to John Weir.
yeah.
We will drop information on his website where you can find all of that on the show notes. Likewise, there'll be links to Missing Links Golf Show on Facebook, TML Golf Show on X, Missing Links Golf on Insta. And of course, our email address the missing links golf show at gmail.com. Drop us a line, get in contact, let us know what you think. And we would love to hear from you. So, Andy Walker, any final thoughts from you?
Uh, just rock out, pilgrims.
Sounds good to me.